Thanks for joining us today. Our session is focusing on triangulating data and applying normalised and weighted scores in order to identify high ability students with greater precision. So my name is Angela Fusionato. I'm an assistant principal at McClellan College, and my portfolio focuses on teaching and learning, which includes oversight of our high ability programs.
And my name is Monique Lee. I'm a learning specialist for academic excellence and extension at our college. My role at the college is to oversee all of our internal high ability programs and to make sure that we're rolling out the initiatives through the Student Excellence Program, so VHAB and the Vic Challenge and Enrichment Series. We thought we'd start today with a bit of context about who we are as a college. So McClellan College, we're situated in Frankston. We're a co-educational government school and we are within the Central Peninsula Network. This year to date, we have 1,089 enrolments, and that steadily increases or continues to increase over time. We are a socio-educational disadvantaged school. However, we've built and established a really positive school culture with our staff, our students and their caregivers through our values of community ownership and growth. So it's been awesome. We love the kids. It's a great environment for them. And we really do have the philosophy of education by design. So we understand that all learners learn very differently to one another. We do our best to cater to the diverse needs of all of our learners across the college and within the wider community as well. And in particular, Angie and I over the last few years have really honed in on that high ability space to ensure that we are catering to the complex needs of our learners that are our highest achievers. In addition to looking at that identification process and how we can upskill our staff to gain that confidence to truly be able to extend and even accelerate for those specific students. So we do have quite a plethora, if you will, of high ability programs. They are very different to each other at our different year levels. So I'm just going to briefly explain each of them. Within our junior schools, we have our Accelerate program and our Elite Performance program. Our Accelerate program, think similar to a SEAL class, they're our select entry learners. They stay within a particular form group from years 7 and 8. So we have our like-minded students together to collaborate with one another, and they set specific SMART goals, particularly within English and maths within those formative years. For the Elite Performance program, it's a little bit different. It's more of a mentor-based program and it's subject-specific high ability. So we have some students who are really passionate about art, about science, about lots of different other subjects that come into the college. And so we have a mentor-based program where they can still achieve growth, but within their specific subjects, and they're identified as they come into the school. Then we have our middle years program, which is 10 Plus Club. A big focus of the 10 Plus Club is ensuring we're maintaining that growth from those junior years all the way through to our senior years. Passions change and different career pathways are on the horizon for those students. So we have a look again at SMART goal setting to ensure that there's growth in English, in math. In particular, some of our Year 10 students will be undertaking accelerated VCE subjects at that time. So we make sure that they have that goal-driven focus for that. And lots of internal and external opportunities as well, dependent on their passions and dependent on those prospective career pathways. So that's what we look at 10 Plus Club. And then in our senior school, we've got our high ability student growth coaching, which is one of our newer programs that we've implemented. Essentially in years 11 and 12, we have students that have a dedicated growth coach. The coach and the coachee meet twice per term, so at the start and at the end. They construct SMART goals. The students do a reflection at the end of each term within these conferencing conversations. It's also just a really good opportunity because they are some of the most stressful years for the students to have some conversations about if they need support with careers, if they need some wellbeing support, and to build up that academic resilience and just do what we can in order to help them achieve success within those particular years.
Can I just ask a question on the senior aspect?
Yeah, of course.
What staff are they? Are they year level leaders that are the growth coaches, or are they individuals that have actually gone through some coaching education themselves?
Yeah, so we have 3. I'm one of them.
Yep.
We also have a dedicated high ability growth coach. So we have a position of responsibility that sits under that bracket. So they get a time allowance to be able to do that. And then we have an extension program coordinator. So similar to a HAPL, but with some additional responsibilities. And we've together done some PL to kind of upskill everyone to be able to do those coaching conversations.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Beautiful. So with each of these different programs that we do have, the big similarity between them is that they're all data driven in the way that we have the selections of the students. So I'm actually going to hand over to Angie now, who's going to talk through that triangulation process.
Yeah, so at the end of every year, we sit down and we have a look at our data sets in order to triangulate these various forms of data to pick the students for the next year. So depending on if they're grade 6 entering McClelland for our year 7 cohort or they're already in our system, the data sets will change based on what is made available to us and the specific cohort. So within this process, we're looking at various forms. We really hone in on our NAPLAN literacy and numeracy data, various ACER assessments that we set, and we also set them for our grade 6 learners coming in to the college for year 7, and also our teacher judgment-based data as well, which comes through our semester reports and also our school assessed coursework. So using all those data sets, we try and see the patterns for our learners, so bringing them all together to build that puzzle. So we're trying to promote that consistency, comparability and fairness. And we're new in this journey, and part of that is also that longitudinal data tracking for our students. So what we're wanting to achieve is where they start in year 7 and those outcomes when they finish with our school, whether it's VC or VCVM.
Angie, you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was just wondering when you started the program with the data.
We started this triangulation process last year, so we're our 2nd year in, but we started the programs about 4 years ago.
Yeah, historically about 4 years ago, and then really trying to get that data focus for the last couple of years.
And especially as the school is growing and we have 2 positions, aside from Monique and myself, 2 positions of responsibility, we really wanted to tighten that process of that selection of students through this data triangulation process. So as previously mentioned, these are the sources that we're really honing in on, and we utilise our ACER assessments. We do this twice per year. We've decided to set the assessments aside from grade 6 students coming into the school in terms 2 and terms 4. So we're tracking that data not only on these triangulation spreadsheets, but also within those data sets themselves. So every single piece here is building that puzzle, building that greater picture of our students. So we're getting to know them more about what they know, how they apply their knowledge, and also the consistency that they demonstrate that knowledge, because we update these spreadsheets every term. It's not just a once-off at the end of the year. It's continuously updated, and it helps build our capacity for our staff as well. So what that looks like in action, obviously a lot of numbers and colour coding, but part of this process, and based on our school staff survey data, as well as the roles that we play, we noticed that our data literacy of staff, we're wanting to build the capacity of staff within that, so their engagement with these different data sets, as well as picking students for the program. So the spreadsheets are set up, so automatically, for example, if I'm updating our semester 2 teacher judgment data, that's already pre-filled into a tab. So the spreadsheet has formulas that will just auto-fill and auto-populate for me. So it's taking a lot of the work out of that. It's color-coded not only for ease of, I guess, visual access, but also helps support the conversations with staff that are pretty new on their data literacy journey. And we can see the various data sets that we're drawing from. So a slight variation with a change to how maths is now reported with teacher judgments rather than the 3 strands, but we can see our NAPLAN semester-based data and also the various ACER assessments. So once again, we do eWrite, PAT reading and PAT maths as part of that.
There's a question in the chat. So how often are you completing the PAT test?
We're doing that twice a year, and we're doing it in terms 2 and terms 4. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So do you have a data coach? Do you have somebody that actually looks at the data and crunches it for you, or are you doing it yourselves?
That's part of my role, and then I'll work with other staff to unpack this data. So depending, I'll work with different leaders, and then they'll feed that down to their different groups as well. Yes.
Sometimes profoundly gifted students don't want to be tested and they resist testing.
Yes.
Have you had this? What do you do?
So we found that, and why we found it important to really triangulate that data to start, I guess, building that picture is we found, especially with some of our twice exceptional students, when NAPLAN comes, they might have that test anxiety, they might refuse to sit NAPLAN. So having the various forms of assessment has been really important, I guess, to paint a clearer picture. And later on, we'll also discuss students are obviously more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. So then this data set also goes to our sub-school teams and other staff that work with these students. So we're painting, I guess, that really holistic view of these students. So absolutely, we have found that with some of our, especially twice exceptional students.
I think too, strong collaboration with our primary schools in the transition phase. We have a lot of open communication with them. So when students are coming through, if they're not necessarily doing like that initial testing, we can certainly track the students over those years. But like at that initial point is when we can kind of get that perspective from them of those students that may fall under the radar. And then, yeah, we have a look at that too. So that's a big part of it as well.
And the spreadsheets will look slightly different depending on the year level. So as an example, to form part of our Accelerate program as a grade 6 entering into year 7, we use the ASA AGAT test, where our other students will just use the reading, the maths and e-write as part of that ASA profile. With our students entering the college as well for Accelerate, we'll also draw their teacher judgment and NAPLAN data, which is provided by the student and primary school. So within each assessment, they're going to have different raw scores. So what we've found before we started to normalise the data is that it was hard to make light comparisons. So one way that we've tried to adjust and have that triangulation process is we've converted all of these data sets into a percentage scale. So sometimes, for example, ASA E-Write, that's quite easy. It has a top score. So the assessment is out of 28. So we easily can find the percentage of that specific student. In some other assessments, such as teacher judgment, the scale can go up to 11, year 7 student. If we're judging that as a benchmark scale, it's not really having like for like comparisons with the data sets. So we've set a ceiling or benchmark depending on the year level and depending on the assessment type that we are looking at. So one is not, I guess, having too much of an influence over the other assessments. There's obviously limitations to that specific model. And once again, we're in year 2 of this process, but we're finding it more accurate compared to not having this normalisation process as we go through. So within either the max scores or a set ceiling, sometimes we are utilising NAPLAN score equivalency tables that are available online. So it shows you where the top score of NAPLAN is. ASA provides all of those data sets for you, and we have our teacher judgments as well. So sometimes we are utilising what the assessment already has established, or we are setting that ceiling or benchmark depending on the specific year level of those students. So then we have a common scale across what's occurring within semester 1 and semester 2. So making more of those like for like comparisons, and one is not outweighing the other.
Yeah, question.
There's a comment in the chat from Kelly. Great to hear the cells populate things automatically. It can be challenging to see teachers using too much of their time inputting data rather than analysis. We've also got thanks Kelly for the comment, and we've got a question from Kate. How do you identify high ability learners who are advanced in other subject areas that don't fall within literacy and numeracy?
Excellent. So the programs that Monique was mentioning before, aside from our EPP program, the rest we are drawing data from our literacy and numeracy. So our Accelerate, our 10 Plus Club and our high ability growth coaching students, we're using those data sets to build those these specific spreadsheets. In VCE, we also take into account their GAT and any previous study scores they may have set as a year 10 or year 12 student. Do you want to speak more?
Yeah, when they, realistically, when they enter into the school for the EPP program, we have that subject specific high ability, but of course we won't necessarily in our context and where we are have every single student within that area apply for these things. So we have obviously teacher judgment within the classroom and classroom data. We've had a really big focus on data literacy within the college and for specific learning areas to be paying attention to those students who may not necessarily data-wise be demonstrating that high ability, but sometimes they will just demonstrate it in their behaviours and the way in which they're passionate about a certain subject too. So we definitely take that all into consideration. Say, for example, when we have our 10 Plus Club, we obviously have those students who, if we're looking at those domains through the department, would sit within that intellectual high ability domain. But then from that point forward, we have a Google Classroom, we give them a form at the start, we get to understand them as learners and as young people. So we ask them, what are you passionate about? What subjects do you enjoy? What subjects do you find challenging? Are you interested in particular careers? And then we will organise through, say, the Victorian Challenge and Enrichment Series programs, or even just external things that we find some opportunities. But we contact learning area leaders and year level teams to be like, hello, we've got this opportunity for students who are really interested in science and passionate about it. Is there anyone within your particular classes that would benefit from those opportunities? And obviously all of the resources that we have for these are open to all staff members. So if staff members want to do SMART goal setting within their particular subject area with their students, they absolutely can. But for us to have that targeted approach within our particular school context and to ensure we are catering to the needs of our highest achievers, because that's an area for us or a focal point for us at this particular point in time. Yeah, it's definitely something that is available to other students, but yeah, in-class differentiation with teachers is still apparent and occurring. We just also have these for those students that we want to maintain that growth and performance over that time.
So once we have all of the various data sets, the next stage that we look at is having semester-based averages. There's some slight variation here because we've had the change in maths reporting, maths teacher judgments, but beforehand, we normally find that semester 1 has greater amounts of assessments due to NAPLAN taking place versus semester 2. So using all of these data sets, we can already see the normalisation process has occurred. So everything is represented as a percentage with the various forms of assessment, and then we have an average for the semester. Then the next phase is then we weight the scores for the semester. So this is based on various conversations, and this does look different for various year levels, especially as students progress throughout the year. So for example, when we're selecting students in our year 11 high growth coaching program, we do look at data sets that go prior than their year 10 because we've got a greater amount of resources to unpack. So this is just one example that as a team, we've decided 9s into 10, this is the weighting that we are using for that specific year level. So what they've undertaken in year 9. So for semester 1, where they had NAPLAN, so greater number of assessments alongside their PAT and teacher judgment, we were weighting that as 45%. And then for semester 2, their average has moved to 55%. So we're taking into account the recency of assessment because we assume that our students will have that natural progression as they go through and just taking that into consideration of their performance. So growth and recency is the reason why we do our weighted scores. So we're giving more emphasis to the data occurring in semester 2. Now, of course, not all students did all assessment tasks, absolutely, and we have new enrolment, so we have lots of flexibility within that. So we're inbuilding formulas within the spreadsheet to handle those data gaps. So a student isn't unfairly ranked because they have missed specific assessments. Once again, there are limitations to any sort of program within this. It is not absolutely perfect, but it is painting us a picture that we then take to the most important next step, is a professional judgment. So once we have, this is, you can see the students, their weighted score is ranked to the far right in purple. Their normalised score sits beside that. And so with this, we then unpack the amount of students that are within our program. So a lot of the times it's between 15 to 20 students. We have a greater number of students within a spreadsheet. And then we have those professional discussions with our learning area leaders, with our sub-school teams about who is actually appropriate, who's going to engage in this program before we start offering that information out to students and caregivers as well, because we want them to be enthusiastic about being part of these programs too. And we are also taking into consideration a student that might be sitting lower. There might be concerns about their level of engagement, or they might be a twice exceptional learner. So once again, we know that students are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's forming part of the larger conversation. But this conversation is therefore data informed. So we're evidence-based with our process. So we're trying to have a clearer picture of the learners within our space.
Can I just ask there, sorry to interrupt. So if you've got a student that's in the accelerated program, say 7, 8, and they do quite poorly in 8, so they haven't kept up their standards, and they're not included in the class in year 9, what type of conversation do you have with family, and have those conversations already started before the end of that year?
Yeah, so we've just established what we call guiding principles for our high ability programs. So when a student joins the program, information is provided to them and their caregivers about their expectations within the program. So not just keeping up academically, but being engaged, the behavioural expectations as well. So there's no, okay, I'm in Accelerate in year 7, so I'm guaranteed to have a place in that in year 8. So it's part of those continuous conversations, and also since embedding SMART goals as well and having other teachers in board, it's more transparency and accountability for all stakeholders really. So we have definitely had conversations. And on the flip side as well, to be part of our Accelerate program in year 7, students have to apply in grade 6. Not everyone applies. So we have some, you know, really amazing students in that cohort that have missed out. So they have the opportunity to join once we have those data sets as well.
Have you had any challenges from staff being on board? So onboarding staff in regards to, you can't just base it on data. It has to be, you know, it has to be teacher judgment, and the data's not giving the full picture. What have you had any of those challenges?
We've been really transparent with the data side of things, but even just as a college collectively, we're very cognizant of the fact that there's lots of diverse needs of our students. So in terms of like our contextual backgrounds, we provide very strong, I suppose, programs and initiatives for that additional support and for like upskilling our middle band. So our area of focus really was on that high ability side to start to build it up. We take all of that feedback on board with respect to this. So we open it up to staff. They have full access to all of the spreadsheets and to have the conversations. We don't necessarily get too.
No, if anything, it's actually helped support, especially with teacher judgment, comparability to NAPLAN. So having a triangulated spreadsheet available has helped inform those conversations. And obviously, like one data set for NAPLAN as an example isn't a really true reflection of the students' whole, it's a one day
Snapshot.
Yes. So it's just helping build that capacity of staff and the conversations that need to occur around all data sets, and also the student as a learner beyond numerical figures.
And you've had data literacy workshops for all staff.
Yes.
So they have an understanding of data and the importance of data.
Yes.
Different entry points at different points in time. Everyone's at a different level, but yes, that's been a big focus of our PLs.
Thank you.
Are you hoping that your VCU results will go up as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
And so the growth coaching model in BCE is fairly new as well. And so part of our next steps with our journey is really wanting to track, well, if our year 7 students starting in the Accelerate program, where do they actually, what is their pathway when they do leave, and what steps can we take to support those students, or, you know, I guess mitigate any issues that, reasons why they may leave the program.
And building up that academic resilience at that top end, particularly for our students, we have a range of different complexities of their background set and things. So we just want to make sure that they have that reassurance, and with the coaching program, have that person that's kind of their champion for those years to keep that up too.
Actually, one question from Kelly. How has the team considered what it means for planning or assessment when a student is hitting 100% for data collections? I ask because I'm curious about how often it might occur and how that type of limitation can be offset.
Absolutely. So we're having a few more conversations at the moment, especially based on, I guess, our panorama data, which not all staff see, about the alignment between teacher judgment and NAPLAN. And are we setting the right CATs, formative versus summative? All of that is currently part of our professional learning suite. Sometimes it looks like a student may hit 100% based on the assessment ceiling that we have set. And then we've gone back and reflected on the spreadsheet based, and we do change some of that data set if we believe the students, I guess, are reaching 100%, but there's inaccuracies within that. So it's not a perfect science. It's something that we are continuously adapting and changing. We're just finding it's working better to bring that collective account of the data triangulation to further conversations with our sub-school team.
Yeah, I have a question. What PL did you do to learn how to make the spreadsheet, particularly that autofill data?
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time on YouTube and AI, to be honest. So it's, a lot of learning along the way for me. And I've just found, as part of my role as well, as much as that I can take away the grunt work for staff and it's just focusing on reading, that's why I guess I've a lot of passion to do a lot of YouTubing.
All righty. So we've kind of covered some of this, but I just will reiterate as well. We know, and wholeheartedly that students are not a number and we get the data that comes through. So as a team, we meet and we tentatively select students for different programs that we have. But then we do meet with our year level teams and our learning area leaders just to see if they can identify anything that we haven't with respect to the students that we have and we know so well. There's, again, ranging complexities, there's ranging diverse needs, we have twice exceptionalities, so we can work with all of these different teams to identify whether or not these particular programs are suitable for certain students as well, or whether they have some insight of putting forward some different names and further exploring that data. But when we finalise those lists, we do send formal invitations to the students and their families to outline the programs, sending through things like our guiding principles and parent agreements, student and caregiver agreements, I should say, because it's for both to get everyone invested into this journey as well. And our staff are informed and supported with the spreadsheets. So again, there's different entry levels with the spreadsheets. Angie's an absolute data guru when she puts everything together, but she's also got different tabs on all of the spreadsheets. So you of course have the students selected for the programs, but you have the whole cohort data, that's ordered, everything is in different kind of places for you. So it's really accessible for staff, and we have had a big drive on being able to improve data literacy across the college too, with respect to staff accessing that data and supporting learner profiles and understanding who they have within their classroom. We also have the SMART goals developed for the students in the program. So there's a really big focus on literacy and numeracy for our students in year 7 and 8. Again, in year 9 and 10, that's a focus, but they also start to undertake some early VCE subjects. So we'll incorporate that in there too. And when it comes to the high ability growth coaching, we of course include English in there because it is their subject that we are focusing on maintaining some growth within, because it's something that they all have to have. But then they choose some challenging subjects, and we even have some wellbeing focused SMART goals for those students too. Because again, it's a challenging time within those senior years and we know that they're under a lot of pressure. So we want them to focus on themselves in that little bit too. So in terms of our different programs, again, the data sets, and Angie's briefly covered over this, we do utilise some different data sets for each program. The one that's a little bit more complex, or that area, is the junior school. So we don't know our grade 6s before they're coming in, and we like to know as much as we can about them. So we obviously have conversations with our primary schools. But in addition to that, the students in our Accelerate program undertake the ASA General Achievement Test or AGAT test. We have their numeracy, NAPLAN data for numeracy and literacy, but we have their school reports as well. And that's what Angie will triangulate. For EPP students, if their elite performance subject that they love and they're passionate about is literacy and numeracy, we do ask them to bring in NAPLAN data. Every single student will bring in their school reports because that should reflect whatever subject that they are demonstrating that they are high achieving within. But if, for example, it's a student who is applying to be within our art program, then they will also supply for us a portfolio of their work and different aspects of that too. But they're all invited to attend an interview. We want to meet the students and those prospective students for those programs. We ask them who they are as a learner. We get to know what their interests are and just who they are as a young person. But we can gain a lot from those conversations and all of that transition data we get from the primary schools too. And that's how we make the selections for that first component of our programs. Then for our middle school programs, it's as Angie has gone through, we've got our NAPLAN data, we've got our different types of testing with respect to school-based assessments. And it's similar to our senior school, but we also include that if a student has done an accelerated VCE subject, that's also taken into account to how they've performed within that particular subject, so that we can track that as well to support them further. In terms of Compass, we actually have some coloured dots to identify the students, just for really quick, short, sharp identification for staff, so that when they get their particular class list during a Head Start period, when we're looking at who our learners are within the classroom and their diverse needs, they can quickly identify that if a student has a darker purple dot, it does indicate to that degree, that high degree of literacy and numeracy, or that intellectual sort of high ability domain, but they sit within the Accelerate program 10+ club or our high ability growth coaching. And then students that have a lilac dot, because we're keeping with the purple theme, is elite performance program, but that just indicates that they have subject specific high ability within that program. pinned to their compass profile is also their subject that they're EPP for. So their teacher will know. We have really strong communication with the teachers to let them know well in advance that they will have this student that's very passionate about their particular subject and will have to undergo a SMART goal process. So yes, a lot of open communication about what is needed to support these students within the classroom too, which is where you will get a lot of questions about if I have another student in my particular subject area that's really passionate about it too, can I still do this process? And absolutely they can. It's just for these particular students, it's a mandatory component of, say, for example, we're placing them on their reports. So in terms of our ongoing tracking for the students, each semester we update the data and we share these updates with staff. We can have a look and see if there's different fluctuations or different trends that we're seeing. We can identify from there too if we notice that students, say for example, it's not necessarily the wording they will want to use, but underperforming in comparison to where they're normally sitting. So there might be something that's going on that we can provide some additional support for them too, so we can kind of have a look and see how our learners are going in comparison to how they are on a regular basis. And identify some students too who have high potential in certain subject areas that we can support further within the high ability space. In terms of our guiding principles and agreement, we have all of our expectations that are set out for our high ability programs. So in terms of, again, Angie mentioned, not only academic performance, but it's behaviour and overall organisation and expectations within these classes. And if, for example, a student is struggling a little bit and we're noticing that their progress, their behaviour might not necessarily be the best or whatever that is, we will organise an SSG. So we want to keep parents in the loop with respect, or parents and caregivers in the loop with respect to their student and how they're going and what we can do to best support that particular student in that space. The SMART goal setting we've gone through, but yes, we have the SMART goals at every single point. We've just introduced in this particular semester, including SMART goals on the students' reports. And eventually what we'd like to do as well is to ensure that there's a student reflection associated with that as well, just to increase that student voice and agency on that documentation. They have the verbal conversations with their teachers and they'll have conferencing to get some feedback, but it's nice for them to also sit down and reflect upon their own progress and growth. I should also mention that the SMART goals, the focus of them is not grade based. We don't like SMART goals that are, I want an A in this or I want to get 100%. It's what can you achieve growth in, what's going to actually help you as a skill within the classroom that you could do and utilise within that time. IEPs, we've just recently adjusted our regular IEP template that we've been utilising just to include some aspects to cater to our high ability students so that we can start to incorporate these from next year with our new year 7s that are coming through and then slowly progress through, that we update them each year, but have some IEPs for these students too that their SMART goals will sit into as well, and just to really get to know them further as learners and to build those student profiles. And yes, we have our 2 dedicated positions of responsibility. So we have Angie and myself that work within the high ability space, but we also have the high ability student growth coach, which is dedicated to the conferencing with the year 11 and 12 students. They get the time allowance to be able to do that, so the period time allowance, but it's really worked in well to ensure that the students that we do select for the programs do get to meet with their coach at the start and the end at every single term, so to maintain that consistency, because there's nothing worse than setting a goal and then never coming back to it. So we just wanted to make sure that that process was in place. And our extension program coordinator is, again, really similar to a HAPL in the sense that they run VHAP and the Victorian Challenge and Enrichment Series programs targeted towards different learning areas, so liaising with them, but they're also a dedicated growth coach within that space too. Yes.
Can I ask what time allowance those teachers get?
So for the high ability student growth coach, it's the 1 period per week, which usually sits in on our Wednesday afternoons. We have what we call our McClelland Academy program. So students have like passion sort of subjects that they will work within. But for our senior students, they have study space within that time. So it allows those growth coaches to be able to meet with those students within that time frame. The first conferencing conversation is the longest out of all of them because it's getting to know the student, understanding what subjects they're undertaking and things like that. But then after that, the conversations take about 15 minutes because we don't want to take up too much of the students' time. If they want to vent to us about what's going on and whether they need support, absolutely it can take a little bit longer. But yes, we have worked out that with the dedicated individuals that we have to it and my own time allowance as a learning specialist and extension program coordinator with their particular period as well, it works out that we can meet with all of those students and the timing has worked quite well.
And we run a 4-period day, so
Yeah.
there's ample time within a period.
So they each get one from a 4-period day.
Yes, yes.
And the extension program coordinator, they're just looking after VHAP?
Yeah, VHAP and the Victorian Challenge and Enrichment Series. So essentially booking in or organising for learning areas to follow up with certain types of activities.
Right.
So I know that some of the students were enrolled in our enrichment elective program last semester. I personally taught Alex, Daniel and Isaac.
Yep.
How did you identify those students?
They were 10 plus club students. So which sort of I should have said to for our 10 plus club students, we have a Google Classroom page that, I think I did say that, but we had the survey at the start where we get to know the students. But we post lots of different enrichment activities and extension activities in there that if they're open to it, we help them and support them to apply for and organise. So one of them that we do every semester is the chairs, year 10 enrichment electives, which we've just got another student who's applied for the specialist maths one.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
What is I'm a VHAP teacher.
Yeah.
What is the overlap between VHAP and the kids in your program, just in terms of numbers?
It's funny, I said this to Angie the other day, it's kind of like when you know you're on the right track because all of our students that are in Accelerate get picked up by VHAP, so they're always enrolled in it. So it's, definitely aligned. And then all of the students who are elite performance program students in literacy and numeracy also get picked up by VHAP. So if there's ones that do pop up for us within the VHAP portal, we actually do kind of explore that further too, because they're obviously being identified as those high achieving students within literacy and numeracy, and we see if we can support them further within their classes. Yeah. Beautiful. So in terms of continued professional development, we again have only really just started out in this space and we've built these foundations. But there's always obviously areas for improvement. It's not necessarily that what we're doing is the absolute be all and end all, like that is definitively it, what everyone should be doing. But it's worked within our school context and having these different programs for the students that we have at our school has really helped to uplift the confidence of these high achievers that we have. The SMART goals appearing on the semester reports, inclusive of reflection, is something that I definitely want to have in practice. And consistent from this particular point forward, but particularly that student voice and agency component of it. Because again, you can have the reflections in class too, but it's important too for them to be reflecting and also communicating that with parents and carers as to how they're going within those particular subjects. And longitudinal data tracking as well. We really just want to see if we're tracking students from year 7 all the way through to year 12, if they're in those programs, if they're not in those programs, but what does that look like? What story does that tell us? What does that tell us about the effectiveness of the programs and what are the things that we need to improve on as a college? But yeah, it's just been really good to keep consistency with respect to having that data triangulation and to be able to have something to kind of talk to and to share with staff to really build their data literacy and the learner profiles that, we can help them to construct themselves too. Awesome. And I think that is it from us. So hopefully we've been able to share something with you that is
That's
helpful.
really good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
I do have a question. Sorry. I know you mentioned that you send out your completed data to your year level leaders and domain leaders for review. What have you found is, I guess, the best time in the year to do that? Or is that an ongoing process throughout the year for you guys?
For the selection into the programs, we do it towards the end of the year. So the week after next, we're starting our Head Start program. So 2026 classes. We'll often sit down after that wraps up. So we have that activities week and a few extra days as well. When we have that more of protected time and staff have more of a headspace to engage with those conversations. So we're trying not to overwhelm people, especially during Head Start.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So same time we.
Questions?
Have you had students that you've removed from the Accelerate program because of their performance, of the data showing that they're not?
Not for academic performance, and realistically, we've only just implemented our guiding principles and our student and parent agreement. Purely to make sure that we have that capacity to talk to certain points in terms of behaviour, in terms of academic performance. But it's kind of that fine line too, in that we wouldn't necessarily want to be just blatantly removing a student because of academic performance within our context. It would be more so identifying what supports can we put in place for you. We know that we've identified in our data sets that there's a reason why you are here, but what can we do to better support you in that space to gain success, whether it be that they have those really top results at that point in time, or whether it be that we can just help to lift them up and just gain that growth. Growth is kind of the key thing that we really want to focus on with these students.
Sorry, how do you balance then if there's students that didn't want to participate in that initial data collection that you then identify really should be in that class, but now the class is full? Do you consider like a separate class, or like how does that data come into play?
So given, so our Accelerate program's a 2-year program starting from year 7 to year 8. So when we are offering students in grade 6 to come and sit the test, so they're obviously keen to be part of the program, we never set that class for 25. We have flexibility within that specific class. We often do find that students, both data and behaviourally, do stay in that class for the 2-year program, and then from years 9 and up, it's a reassessment every single year. So just because they were in it in year 9 doesn't mean that they're going to be in it for year 10. It's a reassessment of that specific program. We have found recently, that's why we established our guiding principles, and it was more on the basis of some behavioural concerns, to bring that into the forefront and really make it transparent to students and caregivers. These are the expectations. And once again, as Monique just said, it's not just a, all right, you're out. It's a SSG will be formed. Absolutely. We'll put the scaffolds, the supports in place. But if the student, I guess, can't meet those expectations with those supports, then we'll have the shift. Yeah. And also that enables, with the guiding principles as well, it's also opening the door for caregivers and students to say, just because you weren't selected or you didn't engage with the program in year 7, there's still opportunity as you go through to enter.
And there's always an out too, in the sense that if we have a student and they really desperately, like we've identified them, but they do not want to be a part of it, no one is going to force them to be a part of it. But we still communicate with the relevant staff that this student is a student that, you know, can be challenged within the classroom, will require some extension, because then again, that could transfer into behavioural differences as well. But we ensure, or our big focus apart from data literacy, is upskilling staff to be able to cater to extension and acceleration opportunities within their own classroom. So we still want them to build their data, past data sets within their own classroom setting themselves, to be able to support not only the high ability students, but students with additional support and different types of inclusive properties. There's some changes in there too.
To make some
exceptions. Comment from Kelly. Kelly wrote, "It's great how you are annually reviewing the groupings." Thanks, Kelly. Got a question from Kate. Have you noticed any trends now that you are so closely tracking the data in terms of the gender divide between high ability students in literacy and numeracy? If so, are there measures in place to help overcome this?
Interestingly, since so I'm in my second year at McClelland, and prior I was in a very different setting and context. When in the previous setting, when we were having grade 6 students apply as part of year 7, there was a very large disparity between genders, and that was taken into consideration in that context for class setting. It actually hasn't come up in our McClelland context, but if it was very skewed one way. It would absolutely be part of conversations with all relevant stakeholders when setting a class for year 7. But just interestingly, at McClelland, it hasn't come up as of yet. But yeah, my previous setting, we absolutely looked at the importance of having a balance within a classroom. And in terms of other trends, we're starting to look at, especially with our math pathways of students that are starting in Accelerate, so those year 7 and 8 programs, and where they're tracking in terms of like if they're going into methods. We sometimes run a specialist class, sometimes we do that BSV, just with our, I guess, cohort and everything like that. So where students are progressing on those journeys as well. we're
Is that,
starting to
is that
reach
at
out.
the year 10 level that you're offering that? Or so, for example, they've been high ability right throughout in math, and then they come to year 10. Are you offering unit 1, 2 methods, or?
We offer pre-methods in year 10 for select students, so they're not necessarily all within the specific program.
Right.
And especially to have a whole class by that stage without context
Yes.
as well as pre-methods. So then that does inform what happens in year 11, and absolutely why we don't always run face-to-face specialist class, given our context. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Please join me in giving Angie and run